What's going on, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Expected Bets for your go-to podcast for all things hockey betting. I'm Gator Betting, and joined by my two co-hosts, Gretzky Betskis and Franco the Banker. Betsky, I'm already 1-0. The Sabres have lost the first game of the Global Series. You guys at least have a little bit of hope on the horizon, but besides that, how we doing?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, I caught a little bit of that game. Of course, it was a little strange. Like a lot of these global series kind of start out.
Yeah.
So it's hard to put too much onus on it.
Yeah, I hate having to start globally because you play the same team twice back to back. And again, I mean, the Devils look really good this year. Jacob Markstrom looked like the world beater out there. So it'll be interesting to see if they play him again, assuming they will, and try to maybe avoid Jake Allen because they have some time off in between games, but time will tell, you know?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Another thing that kind of stinks about this is they won't play in Buffalo against each other.
No.
So the only North America game will be in Jersey. So Lindy Ruff won't be able to host his former team at Buffalo.
It's probably for the better. Honestly, the less times we play the Devils, I'm happy. The Devils look damn good.
It's all right. Sabres are going to win tomorrow. Sabres and over tomorrow. Lock it in.
I like it. All right. Well, we're not here to talk about the Sabres. We're here to talk about the LA Kings. So let's get into their team preview. Getting into the LA Kings team preview now. Franco, I'm going to toss this first one to you. They do switch up the goaltending room. Darcy Kemper is their main addition back there. They make some other changes. Fogle comes in. Jeannot comes in. Caleb Jones, Burrows, to name a few. Again, I mean, we talk about this team, right? Like, this is another one of these episodes that we're just not that excited. But besides the additions, the big one is Doughty is now out, getting hurt in a preseason game. Kind of throws off this whole team's mojo, and it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to that. But what are your thoughts on how this roster is shaping up in LA?
Just let Graham Clark play top line minutes on the D, and let's see what we got out of this kid, right? I think we have some okay ho-hum type pieces coming in, and Jeannot, Fogle. Like, I'm not super excited about that. Kemper kind of really hasn't been very good. He's more of like that fringe type of starting goalie in this league. Feels like the Kings can't quite get it right in net, and this has been kind of their worst case for the last couple of years now. I don't know. I've been down on this team since last year when they made the PLD move, because I thought the pieces they got rid of were all good pieces for depth, and they turned it into now Darcy Kemper because they obviously trade PLD for Kemper. So
yeah,
I mean, now that trade
what
looks
is that
much
exact
worse
trade now?
That trade
Velarde,
is Velarde, Kupari,
and a first round pick for Kemper, essentially.
Yes.
For a year of him too.
Yeah,
awful.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean,
I love it.
It just looks bad.
There's nothing that makes me happier than the Kings sucking.
The Kings' biggest addition was getting rid of PLD.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they found out last year like what this guy means to your locker room and your team, and obviously, like, at this point, it's proving that he's just not a good guy to have on your club. And I mean, I don't know. I still like some of the pieces here. Like, I don't want to be completely just negative on this team. I still like Fiala. I still like Byfield. I still like Kempe. I still like Kaliev. So I don't hate everything about this team, but overall, I can't feel good about it because you have a guy like Kemper in net, and the pieces they've gotten rid of over the last couple of years don't make me just feel good about this ownership and the management of this team and their direction.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to Kemper, their backup's David Riddick. And I just had that one glaring memory of when Saros was out in Nashville and they were playing the Avalanche, and Riddick went in and just got lit up for like 5 or 6, I think, in the first 2 periods. So very interesting goaltending tandem shaping up in LA. Betsky, with the loss of Doughty, it seems like they're really going to be hurting on kind of the back end of things, including the goaltending.
Yeah, I just wrote about them to miss the playoffs being a kind of a sneaky good bet for the odds you're getting. This is the definition of a failed rebuild in my mind. I mean, I don't know if the Kings ever expected Kopitar and Doughty to have this much juice left for this long after this rebuild kind of started a couple seasons ago. But this is a team that should have Sean Durzi and Brock Faber on the blue line still. I mean, think of the pieces that have been moved to kind of retool the forward group. I think it was Faber part of the Fiala trade. And then the PLD trade, moving Velarde, who was an 8th overall pick in 2018 or 17, and Iafallo, who had a lot of promise. Durzi for a 2nd round pick to Utah. I know there's more that I'm missing here. And then guys like Turcotte just not kind of becoming the player they were hoping he would become. Byfield is still a question mark. I mean, he's definitely looking good, but he mostly played wing last year, and he was a 2nd overall pick, and they were hoping him to be kind of the next Kopitar, and we haven't seen that yet. So I look at this squad, and I didn't think they looked all that fantastic last year, but the West is a little bit weaker. They lost some good pieces. Matt Roy, Victor Arvidsson, and now you just look at this roster, and I mean, it doesn't look terrible, obviously, but if Kopitar slows down, you have Doughty out for who knows how long. I don't know how you have much faith in this team.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive group doesn't look terrible. I will put it that. It's an interesting third line of Danault, Foegele, and Moore, right? Like, that's not the worst third line in the league by any means. Another interesting guy on this team has been the progress of Quentin Byfield, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you kind of wondered when he was going to step up. He had a pretty good year last year, if I believe. But I think with the departure of Kopitar right around the corner, you're wondering who's going to kind of be that next guy for this team, Franco.
Yeah, I mean, they're moving him to center, like Betsky said. He had been playing that wing. So can he continue to adapt, I guess, really, and shift into that center role? We don't always see that happen, right? Sometimes the player moves to center and they, are given more of that defensive responsibility, and they struggle and lose their offensive game. So that's kind of a concern here going into the season. We'll get into that when we start talking about the season-long props and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of concern there because Kopitar, I mean, he's got to be. I mean, how many years does he have left? 1, 2. So
even Doughty in that camp too.
Yeah. I mean, both of them are on their way out. So you have the replacements in place in Clark and Byfield if they work out, but if they don't work out, it severely is going to hinder this team. So I don't mind the fact that they have a guy like Danault. Like, I feel like in a worst case scenario, like if Byfield really doesn't work out at center, I feel like Danault could be your 1C. It's not perfect. It's not beautiful or anything like that, but I feel like he could be serviceable in that spot with, pretty damn good wing depth. I mean, Trevor Moore being on your third line looks pretty good. He's more of a second liner to me, at least I think. So we'll see what happens, but I think a lot of it's going to hinge on what Byfield can do as a center. Can he play that two-way game and still be that power forward, productive type of offensive force as well?
Yeah, agreed. All right, before we get into the best and worst case scenario for the LA Kings, I'd like to talk to you about our sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode of Expected Bets 4 is brought to you by BetterHelp. Have you ever stopped to think about something new you'd love to learn? As adults, we don't always make the time to learn we used to when we were kids. Kids are constantly exploring and growing, but somewhere along the way, life gets busy and we lose some of that curiosity. What's something you've been wanting to dive into? Maybe it's cooking, picking up a new language, or even figure out your golf game to finally beat your new friend. Just because we're older doesn't mean we have to stop growing. In fact, therapy can help you reconnect with that sense of wonder. It reminds you that your back-to-school moment can happen at any time. Therapy is not just for people who have gone through something major. It's for anyone looking to be the best version of themselves. Therapy can help you learn positive ways to cope with stress, set healthy boundaries, and tackle challenges with more confidence. It's really about giving yourself the tools to thrive and grow, no matter what stage of life you're in. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Now back to the show. Getting into the best and worst case scenario for the Los Angeles Kings, Betsky, I'm going to give you the best case, and it seems like they're projected to make. I'll give you the worst case. You're a Kings hater, so I'll let you relish in this. It seems like they missed the playoffs. You just had your write up on how they're going to miss the playoffs, so I'll let you expand on that.
Well, I think I can paint a real bad picture here. I mean, I think missing the playoffs is, again, it's mostly going to be Winnipeg, Utah, LA, Seattle, and Minnesota kind of fighting for the last two playoff spots in the West. I think you can say Vegas, Edmonton, Vancouver, Colorado, Dallas, and Nashville are pretty well set. Obviously, anything can happen, but I would say those 6 spots are probably most likely being taken. I look at this team, and without Doughty, who has somehow just still been a great two-way force for them, obviously a big leader, I'm still waiting for Kopitar to kind of fall off the cliff, and you got to suspect that's happening pretty soon here. Not only could this team miss the playoffs, a worst-case scenario here is Byfield, who put up 55 points last season. He has a total of 73 points in the NHL across 4 seasons, even though he only had a single point in like 5 games the first time he got his cup of coffee. If he doesn't get to at least 60 points, when do you start hitting the panic button that you drafted a 2C at the second overall in a draft class that was highly regarded? Now you're looking at this, having shipped off all these pieces like Brock Faber, Sean Jersey, Velarde for win now type players for this team, and you're kind of left looking at nothing. I mean, at what point do you decide to move on from Kevin Fiala then? And now you've moved Brock Faber for whatever you get for a return for Fiala in a couple of years of his play. I think worst case scenario is this team is like 8th to 10th worst or so, where you're not near the playoff spot, you're not fighting for it, and you're starting to make some deadline moves, and the few young players on the team like Brandt Clark and Byfield don't show much promise.
You're also the goaltender purgatory as well that this team's been in for ages.
I don't think they have a prospect.
No. And it seems like it's just a rotating turnstile of goaltenders they try to bring in to kind of put a Band-Aid on the solution. But the guys there now, you're not really I don't know if they're the future by any means.
No.
Franco, to lighten the mood here, best case for this team, obviously they make the playoffs, and it seems like they do it through their offensive group, though. Like, it seems like they just continue to try to outscore opponents, but hasn't traditionally been the Kings style play. It's been more defensive minded and limiting chances, and now it seems like they're going to have to kind of turn things around here this season.
Yeah, because they got great goaltending in the first half last year. I remember it was Talbot, right? Was their goalie. It was the surprise, across the league that we're like, this. I don't think so. I think down the center, like if Byfield works out, I think that's your best case scenario, right? Because right now, at least down the center, they look good. Obviously, if we're still rating Kopitar as a 1C, which obviously is risky at this point in his career, but Kopitar, Byfield, Deneau doesn't feel that bad as far as center depth goes. So you at least have that in place. Obviously, losing Doughty is going to hurt, but Gavrikov is a pretty good blue liner. Clark's going to be our big question mark again here. So I think best case is that you see Byfield take another step and improve his defensive game and be the de facto 1C going into the next season. I mean, maybe he moves up to the 1C and they move Kopitar to the second line. That would be a great scenario for this team, right? And that Clark can fill in for Doughty. Maybe this is one of those things where it's a blessing in disguise, right? You weren't going to probably give Graham Clark 24, 25 minutes a game. You're probably going to shelter him a little bit more just based on the other players that they have on this team, the veterans. And now you're kind of forced to do it. So maybe he comes in that role and does what Faber did last year. I mean, I think that nobody was expecting what Faber did to happen last year. And obviously he got thrust into that because of the injuries to Brody and Spurgeon. So maybe that happens with Clark here. He gets thrust into a top pairing defenseman for this team and shows out and is great. That would be your best case scenario, I think. And, obviously they're minus 200 to make the playoffs. So that's the expectation. But I think all of us are kind of a little more sour on this team in general. So, yeah.
Agreed. All right. Before we get into some team and player futures, I'd like to talk about our sponsor, DraftKings. TD, Tutty, taking it to the house. Whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. The NFL season is back in full swing, and who doesn't love rooting for a touchdown? So be sure to check out the latest odds at DraftKings Sportsbook. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only at DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Getting into some team futures before we get into the players. Their regular season points total is at 95.5. To make the playoffs, they are minus 200. Yes, no, plus 160. Division winner 7-1. Conference winner 10-1. And Stanley Cup 22-1. Betsky, you have already given out this play, but you are taking them at plus 160 to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and that obviously means I really like that point total under 95.5. Last year, every single team had at least 91 points if they made the playoffs. So I think again, as the bad teams in this league are getting better, that means there's going to be more teams kind of in the middle here in the low 90s, high 80s. So, Kings were able to beat up on the Ducks and San Jose last year. I think both those teams are going to be a little bit tougher this year. I know we're not high on the Ducks per se, but they got a lot of offensive talent up front. And I just watched them beat Utah in a preseason game. Then the players look pretty good. Now, maybe we're wrong there, but we'll have to see how their goaltending holds up too. That's a whole different story. But regardless, I think the division is tougher than it has been in the past 3 seasons. I think Seattle may be able to push them around a little bit more. Shane Wright has had a great preseason. The addition of Montour and Chandler Stevenson makes them tougher to play against. And when I look at this Kings team, you got Brandt Clark, who is very young. He's not necessarily the largest, toughest defenseman. Byfield still needs to start showing more of that kind of like man strength. Otherwise, he may get pushed around a lot at center too. I think there's value to be had at missing the playoffs, and I almost want them to win the first 2 games of the season or so to get extra value out of it. But I'm not going to be too greedy. I'm totally fine with the plus 160.
Yeah. Franco, are you echoing that statement?
Yeah, nothing to add here. I'll grab that plus 160 all day. That's a hell of a value, and leave it at that.
Yeah, love it. All right, getting into some player point futures. Kempe is listed at 74.5. Kopitar at 66.5. Fiala at 75.5 in terms of goals. Kempe is at 32.5. Fiala's at 27.5. And Byfield is at 24.5. An interesting one here is Adrian Kempe, coming off a season high of 75 points. Before that, he had 67 and 54. He's now back again around that margin to repeat his career high at 75. 74.5 again seems a little high for him here. I don't mind the under for his season total. We always say it's better to kind of buy low on these guys coming off career high. But Franco, did you have any futures in the player points or goals market?
On my first glance, I wanted to do Kopitar under that 66.5, but he's gotten there like every single year, man, except for injury shortened seasons. So it's really, I mean, even last year, it felt like he had a down year last year, and you gotta figure Father Time, is undefeated, right? As they always say. So
yeah,
that would be where I would look. I mean, in general, I think I would look at unders here. But yeah, I don't know. I think probably the Kempe under 32.5 would be where I would go, and Kopitar under the points, because I do think there's a world where, especially if this team does start to struggle early, that they move Byfield up to that 1C to see what they have, and Kopitar starts to being limited in minutes. I think a lot of Kopitar's points from last year were because of Byfield and Kempe scoring when it really comes down to it. So if he gets moved down and isn't, getting as many minutes as he has previously, that could obviously go down pretty easily.
Betsky, did you have any picks in the player market?
No, I mean, I think your best shot is maybe Byfield goals, but man, this whole team worries me, especially on the offensive end. This has been the team that has been able to win games defensively. I think they're going to attempt to continue to do so. And I'm not always prone to take unders, but I feel like Kopitar unders right now may be the hot play here.
Yeah. In terms of the trophy market, I think I'm personally staying away. I'm assuming, based on the tone of this episode, that you guys are as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I usually feel like we've been able to make an argument for some sort of defenseman or Calder or even a Jack Adams award on almost every single team. And this one feels pretty devoid of anything worth talking about. It's crazy.
Yeah, I would agree.
It brings such a smile on my face.
Wait, you're not going to grab a Kemper for Vezina? Or come on.
David Riddick, at $1 billion to 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it really comes down to, you're hard pressed here. I think Graham Clark's like the only player I'd be intrigued by if there's markets at all for him, but you're putting a lot of, so no.
Yeah, agreed.
Roundabout.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, just some last thoughts. It seems like a team with high hopes that has a ton of potential to be a disastrous season. And it's already started off on the wrong foot, losing Doughty. And they're still minus 200 to make the playoffs, Betsky, which is crazy. I don't know if we're just completely undervaluing this team. Like when we look at it and we're just like, they should be better than they are. But like, I just don't see it with this team.
I really don't either.
It's weird. And there's not one area. I mean, their forward top 9 is good, right? Like it's respectable. Yeah. But the goaltender situation is the biggest thing that just scares the shit out of me with them, because neither Kemper nor Riddick has been phenomenal. Kemper was good with Colorado for a season or two, right? I'll give him credit there
for a little bit.
Yeah. But
he's 34.
Yeah, he's getting older. And can Riddick play 30, 35, 40 games?
I hope so. Because then we're just going to hammer over us, right? I mean, that.
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to, right? Like, hammer overs with this team. Like, regardless if it's Riddick or Kemper, this team can score. They're not going to be able to defend or keep pucks out on net.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of Expected Bets 4. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. Also, check out our social media on Twitter and Instagram. And thank you again to our wonderful sponsors, BetterHelp and DraftKings. Once more, we appreciate everyone for listening to this episode, and we'll talk to you guys soon.